justify, an attack on the Middle East and against Islam, really. And when you look into it, you really have Jesuit-trained CFR, CIA Director of Knight of Malta, George G. Tenon, Director of the CIA, and you have the high-level Masonic Bush bloodline, bondsmen from Yale. Also, they're actually, the papal bloodline, but also the House of Stuart. You have the Bin Laden family financial dynasty tied together through the Carlyle Group, all connected through the Knights of Malta. They're all Vatican Knights. And these people should be really, of course, brought to trial and put in prison for high treason. And that will never happen in our lifetime. But they will stand before a greater judge. They will stand before Almighty God and give an account for their crimes against this world, against their oppression, tyranny. The Black Pope rules the earth. Everything you know in history is a lie. It's all a lie. It's being rewritten. True history is suppressed. It's covered up. Everything in the Bible is being fulfilled today. Revelation 17 and 18 reveals that there's no hope. You must come out of Babylon the Great. You must come out of the beast system. And that means the vast majority of Protestant churches also. They are no longer part of the Reformation. They're in apostasy. They're under the power of the Vatican. That includes Anglicanism, Baptism, Methodism, every ism. The Methodist Church is Romanized, Jesuitized, Illuminized, all under the power of Rome. Most of the Pentecostal churches are. So don't just think I'm talking about the Vatican, controlling governments and controlling all religions. No, it's a worldwide conspiracy. Worldwide. That's right. And the Muslims will be used to destroy and attack Israel, but obviously they will be under the power of Russia, Gog and Magog through the Eurasian Union. That's the truth. The Vatican will use Islam to be its sword of inquisition, bringing about the destruction of Rome, the destruction of Mecca, Medina, and even the Jerusalem mosques and the Dome of the Rock. We're about to end the Great Tribulation, and we have to lift up our voice and expose this great Jesuit war conspiracy. And the true murderers are our presidents, they are our prime ministers, they are our leaders. Those that we think we elect into office, they are our enemy. They are the true murderers. They are the ones that are bringing destruction across the face of the earth. And the greatest murderer today is Pope Francis. My name is Alan Lamont. Thank you for listening. And as always, all roads lead to Rome.
Shandong was the founder of the People's Republic of China. Born in Shaoshan in the Hunan province, Mao trained as a teacher and then began working in the Beijing University Library, where he started reading Marxist literature. He helped to found the Chinese Communist Party in 1921 after the Communist Party was victorious in a civil war against the ruling party, the Kuomintang, and in 1949 Mao founded the People's Republic of China. Mao's reformation of Chinese society started with the government taking state ownership of industry and farming, and any opposition to these plans was met with ruthless law enforcement using any action Mao considered necessary. In 1958, Mao launched the Great Leap Forward scheme, designed to mobilize labor forces and improve production, but the scheme failed and millions died from the famine resulting from Mao's plans. In 1966, to try and improve his public opinion, Mao launched the Cultural Revolution in an attempt to remove impure elements of society. As a direct result of his actions, 1.5 million people were killed, and much of China's cultural heritage was destroyed. During Mao's reign, it is estimated that 40 to 70 million people died as a result of his policies. Despite this, his economic, technological, and cultural policies laid the foundations for modern China and transformed the country into an industrial world power. He is regarded in China as the savior of the Chinese nation.
主席任期限制取消了，保持我们政策的稳定性，实现我们中华民族的复兴有了政策的根本保障，非常好。
It is quite obvious a step backwards, and I do believe that this generates resentment within the party leadership, among the intelligentsia, because they are concerned with the potential of a return of the Maoist style of leadership.
I gotta get my grits and eggs, my country breakfast.
Strongmen, including Chinese President Xi Jinping. He's praised Russia's Vladimir Putin, talked about his great friendship with Turkey's Recep Tayyip Erdogan, and said Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte was doing an unbelievable job on the drug problem. But Saturday's comment was likely meant to be exactly how it seems to have been perceived, as a joke.
Shalom Chavrim, I'm Steve Banu. You're watching Israeli News Live. Got so many different videos up, and of course different things we're going to be sharing with you guys this evening. Right now you're watching here, this is courtesy of a good friend of mine over in China that sent me this video here. This is China actually building the Silk Road, the One Belt, One Road initiative. This is the high-speed train rail system that they're making. And it's done by an incredible machine that is able to lay out the tracks for this system at a remarkable speed. Everything is done by machine, other than just some hands kind of guiding little rubber pads and stuff as it goes. But at any rate, I've already been looking at this with you guys on a biblical perspective, and I think that what we're seeing here is something that is very remarkable that is happening as I'm examining biblical prophecy in light of an economic boom that is coming to the world, but an economic boom that's going to be part of a new world order. And this is something that a lot of people are not thinking about when we're looking at this economic boom, is that it is part of a new world order. In fact, when President Trump spoke about how that he would bring about Make America Great Again, this was something that a lot of us have overlooked, that yes, America will be great again, but how will it be great again? What will be the catalyst that will really drive the U.S. economy to become great once again? Now, when I say drive the economy, that doesn't necessarily translate into individuals having it good in America or any other part of the world for that matter. This is more about a new world order economy, and yes, there are going to be some very wealthy people as a result, and yes, America will benefit from it as well. It would have to benefit because, after all, when we read the prophecy of Revelation 18, we see that there comes a mourning for the loss of the one city that makes everything so great in the world. And there's been all kinds of opinions about what city this actually is. And I happen to stumble across a prophecy today in the book of Ezekiel that may very well identify this city. First, let's start with the book of Revelation, and then we're going to be going through a lot of things that are happening in the world, all over the world, going back to the city of Neom, we'll go back to China, we're going to go back to Europe, the things that are happening there, Israel, the things that are happening there, the different things that have been said with President Trump, Prime Minister Netanyahu, and you'll begin to see pieces are falling into place for a new world order. Very obvious what's coming. And this was something, by the way, too, the scripture in Revelation that I had shared with a good friend of mine, a dear brother, I shared with him many years ago, probably some 15 years ago. I made the statement, we've never seen the true economic boom that could fulfill the prophecy of Revelation 18. And I said that to him because I said, you can't say that America has caused the world to be economically great, that all the merchants of the world would mourn over her. If it was America, some people say it's Washington, D.C. When Washington is destroyed, then the world will mourn because America made the whole world rich. No, we didn't make the whole world rich. And for that matter, neither is any country in modern times. So let's take a look at the scripture first. And after these things, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having a great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, is fallen. The great Babylon the Great is fallen, has become the habitation of devils and the home of every foul spirit and cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. The kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth have waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. This is one reason why some people believe that Babylon represents the United States, because they say the whole world leaders have all flocked to the U.S., and they've all become wealthy as a result of the U.S. But the problem is we don't see that today. Now we're talking about a global economic powerhouse, not just a slight few. For example, America did help European leaders to become wealthy. They've helped some leaders in China to become wealthy by moving their businesses overseas. Japan, but African nations, South America, many of these other places never were made rich by America. Although the dollar has been all over the world, because why? We just print it off and print it off and print it off. But anyway, bear with me for a moment if you would. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that you be not partakers, not of her plagues. For her sins have reached into heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. Reward her even as she rewarded you, double unto her, double according to her works. And the cup which she hath filled to her double. How much she hath glorified herself and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her. For she said in her heart, I sit a queen and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire. For strong as the Lord, it judgeth her.
Real talk,
And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her, when they shall see the smoke of her burning standing afar off. For the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city of Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore, merchandise of gold and silver, precious stones and pearls, fine linen and purple and silk and scarlet, and all fine wood, and all manner vessels of ivory, and all manner vessels
is everything you need and nothing you don't. You know what I'm saying?
Cinnamon and odors and ointments and frankincense and wine and oil, and fine flour, wheat, beasts, sheep, and horses, chariots, slaves, slaves and souls of men. Notice that. Even the souls of men, we're talking about slavery, is back on the market again.
Your food stamp card. I'm gonna bring it tomorrow. Yours come in tomorrow, and I'm gonna come in today.
I'm going to say something here. Some people would still say, well, that was America because of what happened during the slave trade 200 years ago.
Oh, he
but that's
already?
dead. That's long in the past and no more part of our history. But we do have a slave market already growing today.
Well, I'm going to bring yours tomorrow. I can have
in
20
northern Africa. They're selling. Arabs are selling black men and women as slaves today here in modern times.
Talk to him.
And the fruits that thy soul lusted after are departed from thee, and all things which were dainty and goodly departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all. The merchants of these things which were made rich by her shall stand afar off for the fear of her torment, weeping and wailing, saying, Alas, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet and decked in gold and precious stones and pearls. For in 1 hour so great riches has come to naught, and every shipmaster and all the company and the ships and sailors, as many as trade by sea, stood afar off, and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What city is like unto this great city? And they cast dust on their heads, and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, Alas, alas, that great city wherein were made rich all that had ships in the sea, reason of her costliness, for in 1 hour she is made desolate. Rejoice over her, thou heaven, and ye holy apostles and prophets, for God hath avenged you on her. And a mighty angel took up a stone like a millstone and cast it in the sea, saying, Thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. Alright, so it's a glorious time, but yet those that are wealthy of the earth, and it's not the people's neither. If you ever notice, everything is about the merchants and the shipmasters, etc. Alright? Well, you might say, well, Steve, are you saying that maybe China is that city after you start showing us this One Belt, One Road initiative? Is that what it is? No. But China does play a critical role in all of this because, after all, China is helping to reestablish the ancient Silk Road. And, of course, that ancient Silk Road is a road that was set up back during the times of the Roman Empire. In fact, it was actually after Tyre was toppled by Alexander the Great. Tyre was another mighty city, very much like that of Rome today. We're going to look into that in just a moment. In fact, Tyre fits the biblical pattern to the T, and said about her the exact same things that are spoken about this Babylon city that would fall, that is represented in Revelation 18, that is to be fulfilled in modern times. Tyre also fulfilled that type of a plan. And of course, Tyre was overthrown after Alexander the Great overthrew the
cranberry and apple juice, you know, stuff like that to drink. We'll put it in the bottom of the refrigerator, we'll clean it out and put it in the bottom.
Taken over by the Roman Empire. Now, when the Roman Empire has it, it's a new thing going on. Of course, the Silk Road was very much in play back then as those things went on. Now, you know, another interesting thing is to keep in mind, as I've shared with you this photo here in the background so many times before, and I do believe, let's just quickly, I think maybe we can save the image here. We got it up here on the desktop anyway, I'm sure, somewhere here.
The refrigerator might work better. We get all that.
And just to share this with you, because you need to be able to see this. This is when Pope Francis, wearing his crown, is sitting there in Jerusalem in the upper room. And of course, he's doing a communion service. And as it is, all world leaders come to Rome. Now, I thought, many of you think that it's still the United States as Babylon, and the U.S. is Babylon, the daughter of Babylon, actually, by extension. So there is some truth to that. I don't want to just throw that ideology under the bus. There is truth in that being stated there. But there's other things that have been going on that have really caught my attention, and as to who this statement that was made by Prime Minister Netanyahu with President Donald Trump about a regional move. I want you to keep this very close in mind, and we're going to talk a little bit about these things that are going on here. Now listen to this.
What else you want me to get?
A regional approach from involving our newfound Arab partners in the pursuit of a broader peace and peace with the Palestinians. And I greatly look forward to discussing this in detail with you, Mr. President, because I think that
I'm going to get a bunch of pineapples and peaches, you know, not just one pack.
And it is something that is very different, hasn't been discussed before, and it's actually a much bigger deal, a much more important deal in a sense. It would take in many, many countries, and it would cover a very large territory. So I didn't know you were going to be mentioning that, but that's now that you did. I think it's a terrific thing.
than what Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke about. He spoke about a regional deal that is in the works. Now, this was back in 2017 when he was with President Trump, and of course, President Trump showing his support for Israel, but people don't really understand why this support for Israel has really started from the beginning. And I've stated over and over and over, if you watch what's happening, if you watch when President Trump said he was going to move the embassy to Jerusalem, when you saw Erdogan say that East Jerusalem should be the capital of the Palestinians, and that he would put his embassy there. China said they would also put their embassy in East Jerusalem. As I stated to you, every one of these nations, including every nation that's willing to put their capitals, or their embassies in West Jerusalem for the Israelis, these are all moves that are clearly a New World Order agenda, because after all, they are going to internationalize the city of Jerusalem, or the old city of Jerusalem, and the Vatican will get hegemony over the old city. But what's happening in the New World Order, if you remember, there is to be a divide up of the world into 10 regions. Russia's going to get a much larger region themselves. In fact,
the Russian government has given the go-ahead to a new toll highway that is stretching 1,250 miles across Russia. Now, construction of the highway, called the Meridian from Kazakhstan to Belarus, will provide the shortest land route connecting China and Europe going through Russia. Now, for Washington, this may not be the best news. Why? Well, we asked Yulia Shapovalova to explain.
The privately financed Meridian Highway will become the Russian segment of a new Europe-China highway stretching over 5,000 miles and ultimately connecting the ports of Shanghai and Hamburg. It will run from Kazakhstan to the Belarus border, and its length will be more than 2,000 kilometers or 1,250 miles. It's one of a number of projects promoted by Beijing as part of China's Belt and Road Initiative. The work has already begun around the Sagarchin frontier post at the eastern end of the road. At the western end, the four-lane highway will enter Belarus close to the Russian city of Smolensk. The highway will pass through the territory of 8 regions of the Russian Federation. Its longest section will be located in the Saratov region. The construction of Meridian will be completed by 2024. The new toll motorway is expected to cost more than $9.5 billion and will be built using a public-private partnership. It's expected that the road will start bringing profit in 12 years. The main source of revenue is likely to be trucks between Europe and China. It's planned to take some of the freight that currently uses the Trans-Siberian Railway or the Suez Canal. At present, the delivery of goods from Asia to Europe by sea via the Suez Canal takes 45 days, by the Trans-Siberian Railway 14 days, and if the new road is built through Russia, the delivery time will be reduced just 10 days. Some experts believe that for Washington, this could be something of a nightmare, because the new road will allow Asia and China in particular to trade with the European countries, bypassing the sea routes used by the United States. Plus, China will receive more access to the European market, partially compensating its losses from the current bitter US-China trade war. But Russia must hurry up and finish the project. China won't wait and can build new routes to Europe bypassing Russia.
And there has been some concern amongst European partners that Russia and the United States are going to discuss dividing the security of Europe between the two. If that were to happen, it would very clearly let me know that yes, we are seeing a new world order based on the 10 regional blocks, because part of what Russia was supposed to get in this 10-region block was Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and even possibly Ukraine and other parts there of Eastern Europe are supposed to go under the control of the Russian bloc in a new world order. But it also becomes a free trade zone of sorts. In fact, this is exactly what Prime Minister Netanyahu, though he's talking about security, this is really what he's speaking about when he talks about this regional bloc. And I'll play this for you again. Let's make sure that we can actually, I want to make sure that my volumes are high enough, because it does seem a bit weak on the volume there. But I want you to be able to hear this. Let's back it up. Let's play what Prime Minister Netanyahu says. One more time. Just what he says is what I want to cover here.
New ideas on how to reinstate them and how to move peace forward. And I believe that the great opportunity for peace comes from a regional approach, from involving our newfound Arab partners in the pursuit of a broader peace and peace with the Palestinians.
And I think she tried to call Ms. Jolene because she said,
regional approach with our newfound Arab partners. This is what's supposed to bring about peace. Now, the funny thing is the entire Middle East is embroiled in war. But as I mentioned to you guys some time back, if you look at the 7 countries that America was to take out in 5 years, every one of those countries had something to do with this Silk Road. Now, is it coincidence? I don't think so. I think there is a reason for every one of these countries to have a regime change. And of course, Iran is still on the list because Iran, of course, is right in the axis of the Silk Road Initiative to begin with. But when Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke about a regional move, there's something that you have to really take seriously into consideration to understand what he's speaking about. Saudi Arabia's tech utopia NEOM will have to reinvent the rules to succeed, all right? This is an article that I haven't shared this with you before, but it's just an article about the city of NEOM. And of course, the city of NEOM being a city-state, it will be the 4th city-state on the planet Earth. We have 2 city-states that pretty much have dominated the world economically, and that has been D.C. city-state, London city-state, and of course Vatican city-state that has really held the economics of the world. But NEOM is going to join that community, and it's going to be a city-state as well. But what a lot of people are not aware of about NEOM, even though it's going to be a city-state in Saudi Arabia, have its own laws, rules, and regulations, etc., they are working to make this a tri-city state. The gigantic city project called NEOM, Saudi Arabia might recognize Israel because of the NEOM project.
You can look at these ancient hills and see nothing. Or you can see nothing to hold you back. No set ways of thinking, no restrictions, no divisions, no excuses. Just endless potential. This is the blank page you need to write humanity's next chapter. NEOM. Over 25,000 square kilometers of inspiration, with room for your biggest ideas. A part of the world set aside for those who want to change the world. A land created to free people from stress. A place where pioneers and thinkers and doers can exchange ideas and get things done. A startup the size of a country that will change the way we live and work forever. Healthier, happier, with more time for the things that really matter. A truly global culture from every place and background you can imagine, that can show the rest of the planet how it's done. With energy that flows from the sun and wind, neighborhoods that can feed and clean themselves, technologies that make life everything it can be. This is where we can prepare together for the next. Some will look at these ancient hills and see nothing. But the rest of the world will know that this is where a new way of living began. Discover NEOM.
All right, and this is back in October 29th of 2017. The $500 billion initiative to build a tri-city at the Saudi-Egyptian-Jordanian border in the Gulf of Aqaba will more than likely lead to Riyadh recognizing Israel and integrating Tel Aviv into the project. Again, is a free trade zone. This is kind of what we saw with NAFTA in the United States when the borders got opened up there. This is what we've seen with the European Union. If you think about it, in fact, the European Union was probably one of the first ones to actually do this free trade zone across the European Union. That was under the guise or the guidance of the Pope of Rome. So you think it's something new that China has come up with this Silk Road Initiative? They're just making it look like that China is the brainchild of all of this, but China is not the brainchild. It was actually a European that was the brainchild of reestablishing the Silk Road long before President Xi Jinping did. But yet, nonetheless, they are using China to help initiate this and to pay for this to get the road built. Kind of like when Trump says he's going to have a wall built on the southern border of the United States and have Mexico pay for it. Anyway, in the meantime, they're trying to destroy nationalism because the New World Order cannot function with nationalism. Now, at the same time, this all kind of reminds me of the glory days of Solomon. As we read over here in 2 Chronicles, we see here that Solomon says, now the weight of gold that came to Solomon in 1 year was 636 talents of gold, besides that which the traffickers and merchants brought, and all the kings of Arabia and the governors of the countries brought gold and silver to Solomon. And the King Solomon made 200 targets of beaten gold, 600 shekels of beaten gold, and went to one target, 300 shields of beaten gold, etc., etc. But the thing is, if you notice the merchants, and he even goes into the shipmasters and everything else that Solomon had. Now, I'm not saying that Israel is going to be that city that is spoken of about this Babylonian city that is going to come to naught. No. But it was in the glory days of Israel that all these treasures were coming into Israel under King Solomon, who was a righteous king. Now, he did get wayward later in his life. But what's interesting, though, is the fact that the Vatican has so much interest in Israel and taking over the seat of Israel, as I shared with you in the very photo here, when we see that Pope Francis actually really kind of broke ranks there and did the upper room, drank the wine in the upper room, and of course now had taken over the upper room completely. He became the king of Israel. Not only king of Israel, he became king of the world. Isn't it kind of interesting that we now have in the United States a predominantly Catholic Congress? We now, if it works out with President Trump's new initiative, with his latest choice for the appointee to the Supreme Court, another Catholic, which will give the Catholic a 5-4 majority over the highest court in the United States. That's about all it says. And none of this stuff is coincidental, friends. Everything is happening for a reason. Now, as we move along, the gigantic city, the project called NEOM, right? So Tel Aviv would be integrated into it. But if you go to the very last part of the article, we also find out that it states here, Russia and China would feel more strategically secure if Israel was incorporated into the mega project so that its territory could be used for overland transshipment between Red and Mediterranean seas via the Red Med Railway proposal, which would then make NEOM infinitely more attractive from a logistic perspective for all sorts of investors. If Saudi Arabia doesn't recognize Israel, then this non-Suez workaround is impossible, and NEOM city-state loses its grand strategic significance in the context of the multipolar world order. Interesting, right? Which could consequently lead to a lack of investment and therefore the potential failure of Vision of 2013 flagship project. As such, due to the economic strategic imperatives associated with NEOM, as well as the geopolitical paradigm shifts taking place in Saudi Arabia, Riyadh will probably recognize Israel in the coming future in order to guarantee that its city-state initiative succeeds and ultimately transitions the kingdom away from its oil exporting dependency. You know, this is clearly what they're coming into. And of course, noticing that Russia and China are also needing Israel to join in, and I consider that, again, another regional bloc, and they call it they're calling it a world order as well, a multipolar world order. Now, the multipolar world order kind of reminds you that we are now merging the different belief systems and religious systems of the world. Another vision of the Vatican itself is that exact ideology. This is why the Vatican has been pushing to move black people from Africa into Europe, and also moving the Arabic peoples into Europe as well, to make it a more culturally rich area, you might call it. Very strange how this is working, correct? Now, the ancient Silk Road, as you can see by the map here on the screen and behind you here, this was the way trade was done 2,000 plus years ago. And of course, as you can notice here, Lebanon, right here where Tyre is, this was now the Roman Empire, is where that road stopped at, but then it was picked up by ship trading routes, and the merchandise was then transported all along the Mediterranean coasts of Greece and Italy, etc. They don't show that part, but that's what the ancient Silk Road looked like back in those days there. Now, a very interesting thing, though, we kind of have to understand then, well, how do we put this, how do we identify the very city that would be fulfilling the scripture of Revelation 18, especially as we're seeing that there is being put into place globally a new world order, an economic system to power this new world order, and such a system that will make a lot of people very wealthy, including Americans. And by the way, the Silk Road does traverse into the South America, Central America, the United States, etc. They're not going to be left out in this, and this is one reason why President Trump is working on this. Now, interestingly enough, back in the ancient times, the Roman Empire, who also helped the Silk Road to really become a viable tool, it's no different than that then as it would be today. This was an article called Diplomacy. It's actually the Vatican Insider is the one that wrote the article, Diplomacy of Art, Exchange of Works Between the Vatican and Beijing. When we get into the article, they speak about the Silk Road and how that the Vatican has been working to reestablish their relationships with Beijing and to make things work together. And they had to do this. In fact, the Vatican has been working with Beijing for a lot longer than you could possibly imagine. But what was interesting, and I shared this in a broadcast with you guys a little while back, was at the very end of this, Maestro Jan made this statement here about the Silk Road and the Vatican's involvement. So the dialogue between us is possible and inevitable because of our common sense of goodness. In the 21st century, the extraordinary plan to build a solid bridge of dialogue between Beijing and the Vatican will make the Silk Road shine once again. May friendship, peace, reign in the world. It reminds me when the Bible says, when they say to you there's peace and safety, don't even believe it. But the very man, Maestro Jan from Beijing, said that the Vatican, their dialogue, this will make the Silk Road shine once again. China knew that it is critical to have the Vatican involved because, after all, the Vatican controls all the Western Hemisphere.
Slide 18, this is Bernini's canopy where the Pope sits. Now, underneath this, it's the representation of the Holy of Holies, blasphemously so. And in this representation, this would be in the Holy of Holies where the Ark of the Covenant would sit. And this is where the Pope blasphemously portrays himself to be sitting there in the Holy of Holies. And in this next slide, number 19, you can see the close-up of the pedestals that are underneath this twisted column that are there to represent Solomon's temple. And this thing is huge. It's several stories high. I mean, this thing is huge. And there on this pedestal, at the bottom of these twisted columns, in slide 20 here, we have the 8 faces that are on the pedestals. And these 8 faces are faces of women that are giving birth, women in childbirth. And I believe the obvious symbolism here, this is just like Pope Joan bringing forth her child. I believe that this symbolism represents the birth that will come and of the final one that's going to sit underneath this canopy. And all of this symbolism and all of this scripture, it tells us a consistent story. Now, one more thing I want to read for you from a book entitled The Mysteries of Magic by Eliphas Levi, and this is kind of the grand crescendo. And he is the fellow that did the wood carving of the Baphomet, which we showed you earlier, and he was a Catholic priest priest that got thrown out of the Catholic Church. And you got to be pretty bad to get thrown out of the Catholic Church, but he was. And he was a black magician, and he wrote the textbooks on black magic. And in this book, he talks about when he was in Paris, there was this fella that came in there by the name of Eugene Ventris. And to make a long story short, he had his priest robes on that had a phallic symbol on his head, and he performed a miraculous communion. And he not only performed a miraculous communion, but he imparted to Eliphas Levi the ability to perform this. I'll just read a little bit here, just briefly. Okay. Where I want to read here. Okay. On page 456, it says, thousands of hosts appear on altars where there were none. Wine sparkles in empty chalices, and it is no delusion. It is a wine, a delicious wine. Celestial music is heard. The fragrance of another world diffuses itself, and finally, blood, true human blood, which doctors have examined, exudes and sometimes flows copiously from the host, leaving mysterious characters thereon. And he goes on for several pages talking about the occult miracles this guy did and how this blasphemous mass, and this is the Luciferian mass that I believe will be performed underneath this canopy in the final go-round. And this is something all the way back, before we even studied any of this out, back in 2001, I believe, Donna said she had a revelation from God. And always when someone says that, I'm going to try it, no matter who it is. But she said she believed that the Lord revealed to her that the final worship of the false prophet was going to be a miraculous Luciferian mass where the wine would turn to real blood and the flesh would turn to real meat. And on our website, our new website, which Don and David Yoder worked so hard on, we have pictures there on our website of this actually happened. It happened in the Vatican with John Paul. It happens regularly. And this is something that has happened for a long time. And Eliphas Levi and other occult masters that are in this Luciferian priesthood, they perform this. This has been going on for a long, long time.
controls the Sunni nations in the Arab world. They control the United States, the European Union, all the countries that are already developed countries, as well as all of South America, Africa. The Vatican has a very far-reaching hand. And for China to be able to truly be able to do business with the world and for their road that they're building to become a success, they need the Vatican's hand in doing so. Which kind of brings us to go back to Tari to see how does this play out when we're looking at the situations, again, the situation of Revelation 18 and Babylon referring to modern-day Rome today. And could this also have something to do with the location of Israel? Will the Vatican actually end up moving their headquarters to Israel when they take over the old city of Jerusalem? Possible. I don't know the answer to that for sure, but it's possible. In Ezekiel chapter 27, we read this here. Moreover, the word of the Lord came to me, saying, And thou, son of man, take up a lamentation for Tyre. Tyre, by the way, was in Lebanon, right? It was, like I said, it was the great economic powerhouse of their day 2,300 years ago. And say unto Tyre that dwelt at the entry of the sea, that is the merchant of the peoples into many isles, Thus saith the Lord God, Thou, O Tyre, hast said, I am perfect beauty. Thy borders in the heart of the seas, thy builders have perfected thy beauty. O cypress trees from Sinir have they fashioned all thy planks, they have taken cedars from Lebanon to make mast for thee. Of the oaks of Bashan have they made thine oars, thy deck have they made of ivory, and laid and larch them from the isles of the Kittites. Of fine linen which richly woven work from Egypt was thy sail that might be to thee for an ensign. Blue and purple from the isles of Elisha was thine awning. The inhabitants of Sidon, Arab, were thy rowers. Thy wise men, O Tyre, were in thee. They were thy pilots. Down through the scripture here, Persia and Lud were in thine army. The men of Arvad and Halak were upon thy walls round about. Okay, Tarshish was thy merchant by reason of the multitude of all kinds of riches with silver, iron, tin, and lead. They traded for thy wares. Javan, Tubal, and Meshach, they were thy traffickers. They traded the persons of what? Men vessels and brass for thy merchandise. Once again, slave trade. They of the house of Togarmah traded for thy wares of horses. The men of Dedan were thy traffickers. Many isles were the mart of thy hand. They brought thee as a tribute horns of ivory and ebony, just like in Revelation, ivory once again. Aram was thy merchant by reason of the multitude of thy wealth. And I am skipping some of the places in here, okay, so only for the sake of time, all right? They traded for thy wares with carbuncles, purple, rich, woven work, and fine linen, and coral rubies. Judah and the land of Israel, they were thy traffickers. They traded for thy merchandise, wheat and minneth and balsam and honey and oil and balm. Damascus was thy merchant for the multitude of thy wealth, by reason and multitude of all riches, with the wine of Helbon and white wool. And it goes on and on and on about everything that they had and what they had gotten and all the different places that they traveled. Even Arabia, the princes of Kedar, merchants of the hand of the lambs and rams and goats, and these were thy merchants. The traffickers of Sheba and Ramah. And then what happens to Tyre? All the riches and the wealth of the world, rich apparel, bound with cords of cedar, lined among thy merchandise. The ships of Tarshish, see, shipmasters as well, right? Thy rowers, thy riches and thy wares, thy merchandise and thy mariners and thy pilots, thy caulkers, the exchangers of the merchandise, and all thy men of war that are in thee with all thy company which is in the midst of thee shall fall into the heart of the seas in the day of thy ruin. At the sound of the cry of the pilots of the waves shall shake. In all the handle, the oar, the mariners and the pilots in the sea shall come down from their ships. They shall stand upon the land and shall cause their voice to be heard over thee, and shall cry bitterly, and shall cast up dust upon their heads, and they shall roll themselves into ashes, and they shall make themselves utterly bald for thee, and gird them with sackcloth, and they shall weep for thee in bitterness of soul with bitter lamentation. Sounds like what happens in Revelation over Babylon when she falls, doesn't it? Why? Because all their wealth came to an end. It comes to an end. Now that thou art broken by the seas and the depths of the waters, and thy merchandise, and all thy company are fallen in the midst of thee, all the inhabitants of the isles are appalled at thee. Their kings are horribly afraid, they are troubled in their countenance. See, because the merchants among the peoples hiss at thee, thou art become a terror, and never shalt be any more. But you know what's interesting? There's a legend that out of Tyre, as we look into the historical side of it, was a goddess that arose from there, and it's considered to be the birthplace of Europa. And that, by the way, friends, is how Europe got its name. Who gave aid and fell in love with Aeneas of Troy. The name means rock, and the city consisted of two parts. The main trade center of the island of Old Tyre, about half a mile opposite of the mainland. The old city known as Usha was founded in 2750 BCE, and the trade center grew up shortly after that in the time of the island of the complex there. Isn't it interesting that we actually, some of these names here, besides the fact of Europe, well, we also have Troy is also these things are found in Europe to this day, and how that is actually related to Rome itself. The very Vatican. I say Rome. Why do I say Rome? Because after all, if any of you may be familiar with this photo right here, this is when the European Union was actually being signed. Pope Innocent is the huge statue that is in this room where the European Union signed the agreement for the European Union, which also became a free trade zone. And in fact, recently when the European Union was being kind of pulled apart at the seams with Brexit and everything, the European leaders all went to the Pope of Rome, Pope Francis, and they said, we need guidance. And we've come to you. We look to you for that spiritual guidance to what we should do to save the European Union. The New World Order is his plan. But Europe, as I said, gets its name from Europa, which is the birthplace of Tyre, and of course also the birthplace of the great economic upheaval for Tyre comes from Europa, according to their legends. So isn't it kind of odd that the head of the European Union, which is the Vatican, is also helping to make, as the Chinese say, the Silk Road to glow? It's interesting how these things play out. And as I'm looking at what's going on in the world today, I can't help but believe we're fixing to see biblical prophecy. Biblical prophecy fulfilled in ways that we've never thought about. And I don't know about you guys, but we're coming into a very serious hour.
Hi folks, this is Tony for the A Minute to Midnight show. I've got a video here today for you which I think has some important information. In fact, I was quite mind blown, had my eyes opened by some of what I discovered while researching for this. Revelation 13 and verse 2 tells us that the dragon gives his power, his seat and his great authority to the beast. It also tells us in verse 4 that they worshipped the dragon who gave power to the beast. And in verse 15, he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. The technology is in existence today, such as artificial intelligence, robotics and other things, to create the image of the beast and give it life. And there is a smart city that is being developed today, which I think may be the largest undertaking since the Tower of Babel in the history of the world, and that is what I want to show you today. That city is called Neom, and it is in Saudi Arabia. Now let's take a look at this futuristic city called Neom, which I think is about as New World Order as it gets. In fact, it could end up being potentially the center of the New World Order, where we can live the future as we create the future, unrivaled in concept, unmatched in intelligence, unconstrained by history, and built on humanity's greatest resource, imagination. Neom is a new kind of tomorrow in the making, a place on Earth like nothing on Earth, a new blueprint for sustainable life on a scale never seen before, where inventiveness shapes a new, inspiring era for human civilization. Neom will operate as an independent economic zone with its own laws, taxes and regulations specially created to boost healthy growth and wealth for the region, investors and residents.
With energy that flows from the sun and wind, neighborhoods that can feed and clean themselves, technologies that make life everything it can be. This is where we can prepare together for the next era of human progress.
Klaus Kleinfeld, the former chairman and chief executive officer of Siemens AG and Alcoa Incorporated, was appointed to lead the development of NEOM. And this is set to be huge, folks. The special zone will be established in the northwestern region of Saudi Arabia and is set to include territory from within the Egyptian and Jordanian borders, and to comprise a total area of 26,500 kilometres. And phase 1 of this is due to be completed in 2025. And this place is set to be basically swimming with robots and artificial intelligence. I want to read you something here. It says, we want the main robot and the first robot in NEOM to be NEOM Robot Number 1, the Crown Prince said in an interview in a palatial setting next to the Ritz-Carlton in Riyadh. Everything will have a link with artificial intelligence, with the Internet of Things. Everything. The Saudi Vision 2030 is underpinned by the creation of the world's largest sovereign wealth fund, an estimated $2 trillion pot of assets that will drive investment and create jobs. The fund has already committed $20 billion to an infrastructure investment fund with Blackstone Group LP and as much as $45 billion for a technology fund run by SoftBank. And by the way, folks, the chairman of the Blackstone Group is Stephen Schwarzman, who is a longtime friend of President Donald Trump, and in fact, he chaired President Donald Trump's Strategic and Foreign Policy Forum.
Over 25,000 square kilometers of inspiration, with room for your biggest ideas. A part of the world set aside for those who want to change the world. A land created to free people from stress. A place where pioneers and thinkers and doers can exchange ideas and get things done. A startup the size of a country that will change the way we live and work forever. Healthier, happier, with more time for the things that really matter. A truly global culture from every place and background you can imagine that can show the rest of the planet how it's done.
Our friend Mike from On Point Preparedness made a short video which is excellent a few weeks ago. I'm going to play just a small section of it, and I'm sure Mike won't mind, and you will see why I think this is significant in relationship to NEOM and also to the whole agendas of the New World Order.
Even the two-finger salute, the sign of benediction, which is uniquely Catholic. Talked about this in other videos, but I've found some additional information from a friend in one of my Facebook groups. This actually dates back to the Babylonian, Assyrian, and Egyptians. Serapis, or Jupiter Serapis, the Egyptian divinity whose bust is placed upon the Mons Jovis of the hand, was chiefly worshipped at Alexandria. So again, not only does it relate to the Baphomet statue, but it also relates to ancient Egypt, and this is, like I said before, uniquely Catholic. It's all over their idols and their sculptures and their paintings.
That painting is a Salvator Mundi or Mundi by Leonardo da Vinci from about 1500, and it shows Jesus in a Renaissance dress giving a benediction with his right hand and with those two fingers extended, like Mike pointed out, is also found on that Baphomet statue, and is also in his left hand holding a transparent rock crystal orb. Now I'm going to show you some very interesting correlations between the Salvator Mundi and
NEOM.
In the trailer video on Discom, you can see an orb with a upside down city in it, and so there you have it. And also don't forget the glowing orb that Donald Trump placed his hands on along with Al Sisi and the King of Saudi Arabia in 2017. Okay, now going back to the painting, the Salvator Mundi. It was sold at auction by Christie's in New York to Prince Badr bin Abdullah bin Mohammed Al Fahd on behalf of the Abu Dhabi Department of Culture and Tourism on November 15, 2017 for $450.3 million, setting a new record for the most expensive painting ever sold. The painting is to be on display at the Louvre in Abu Dhabi. Okay, now this gets interesting. The prince, who supposedly bought the painting on behalf of the Abu Dhabi Department of Culture and Tourism, is actually the chairman of Saudi Research and Marketing Group. And, according to the Wall Street Journal, Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman was identified as the buyer of the record-breaking Da Vinci painting. US government intelligence and a Middle East artwork figure familiar with the purchase says Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman used a proxy to purchase the 500-year-old Salvator Mundi. Now, I find it extremely interesting that a Muslim prince would spend $450 million to buy a Catholic painting with a rendition of Jesus giving the Catholic benediction and holding an orb in his left hand. Additionally, in light of the fact that I've just shown you that the Baphomet symbol is basically using that same benediction hand sign, now take a look again at the logo for NEOM. At first you may not see it, but then it actually becomes obvious when you know what you're looking at that it is hiding in plain sight a symbol for Baphomet. NEOM is absolutely a globalist's dream, a smart city designed by globalists for globalists. And the chief executive for NEOM is Klaus Kleinfeld, who is a member of the Bilderberg Steering Committee, as well as being on the World Economic Forum, and he is a lifetime member of the Council on Foreign Relations. These are all organizations designed to bring about global government and a new world order.
We've had a huge amount of interest and are talking to a lot of companies that are on the forefront of multiple technologies, wanting to partner and wanting to try out things in NEOM. What speaks for NEOM? I mean, one thing is a beautiful location. It's just wonderful. I was just there last week. We invited the top livability experts from around the world to spend some time in NEOM with us to talk about future of livability. And I tell you what, it is as though you come to a place where the mind is at peace. At the same time, you know, we are creating a place where prosperity can be gained through creating a new future there. So on the technological side, a lot of people look at it and say we can try certain things out, and we can try it out without being held back by existing infrastructure, plus being allowed new types of legislation. So we have full legislative authority, and we've been asked by His Royal Highness the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, write this legislation in the most investor-friendly way and in the most future-oriented way, and this is what's currently happening.
A number of large companies and countries are already looking to be involved in NEOM, including the SoftBank Group, which is in Japan and are one of the largest companies in the world and the fourth largest publicly traded company in Japan.
This is fantastic opportunity, as Crown Prince says, because of the leadership, because of the location, because of the people in the kingdom, we can make it happen.
Also, the Russians are looking to get involved in it, calling it perhaps the most ambitious infrastructure project in the history of mankind. This definitely conjures up images of Nimrod and the Tower of Babel in my mind. Saudi Arabia and Egypt set up a $10 billion joint fund in March as well. Discussions are also underway between Saudi Arabia and Jordan as to Jordan's role in NEOM. Bin Salman reportedly arranged a series of meetings between top Saudi officials and Israeli counterparts, as well as members of the Egyptian government, according to the Emirati newspaper Khaleej Times. And officially it was to discuss NEOM, but also no doubt to talk about the Palestinian peace plan. And however, The fact is that NEOM will feature a bridge across the Gulf of Aqaba, as well as hydro-agriculture projects, and this is where Israel comes into the picture, according to the Israeli national news. Klaus Kleinfeld has revealed that a number of construction projects are already underway and likely to be completed by the end of summer of 2018. Saudi Arabia's megacity will most likely allow only electric vehicles to operate within its confines, according to Klaus Kleinfeld.
I'm coming. The game don't start without
exploring
me,
the possibility of how quickly they can bring passenger drones in, and as well as how the city can encourage pedestrian traffic. Palaces for the King, the Crown Prince and other senior royals are among the first contracts that have been awarded for NEOM. As I mentioned earlier, Bin Salman had said they want the main robot and the first robot in NEOM to be NEOM itself. Also, they want everything there to be connected, so no one can live in NEOM without the NEOM application that they will be given. According to Bin Salman, everything will have a link to artificial intelligence, to the Internet of Things, everything. Your medical file will be connected with your home supply, with your car, linked to your family, linked to your other files, and the system develops itself in how to provide you with better things. Today, all the clouds available are separate, the car is by itself, the Apple Watch is by itself, everything is by itself. There, everything will be connected. Considering that Saudi Arabia has Sophia, the world's first robot citizen, and Bin Salman's desire to connect everything with artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things, I can see the potential for NEOM to be the New World Order capital, and possibly even Mystery Babylon itself.
Superior New World Order is in the process of establishing a communistic, socialistic one-world government. In addition to this new socialistic world government, it will also establish a new religion. This new religion will embrace all the world's religions, but will in fact promote Lucifer as the true God. Those who do not worship the beast spoken of in Revelation and do not accept the mark of the beast will be cut off from society and terminated. Talking about the New World Order and the one world religion that goes along with it,
take a couple of y'all with me though. Yeah. I'm taking y'all down with me. Who's coming
and I'm
with
reading
me?
from this website which says, Astana is the capital city of Kazakhstan with an official estimated population of nearly 700,000 people as of March 1st, 2010. Astana is the first large capital being built in the 21st century. The word Astana originates from Persian, Astana from the verb istadan, which means to stand in respect, and literally means threshold, i.e. royal or sacred, when people stand in respect and awe, implying where the court is seated, as in a capital city or a shrine town. What this really means is that Astana is being built as a shrine to the New World Order. Now, we want to have a look at what this means and the symbolism surrounding this, as well as the religious aspects or the religious dimensions to it. The city has been described as a futuristic occult capital being built in a remote and deserted area of the Asian steppes. The city also depicts many instances of sun worship, making one believe that the city is a celebration of the religion. So let's have a look at some of the photographs of the New World Order capital. Now this imagery here, these two pillars that we see, let's see what the website says about these two pillars. It says, this layout is present in a majority of important cities, including Washington, D.C. and Paris. The two golden pillars are believed to represent Masonic symbolism, specifically the two pillars of masonry, Boaz and Jachin. These pillars are featured in all Masonic lodge rooms. Boaz and Jachin were two copper, brass or bronze pillars which stood in the porch of Solomon's temple, the first temple in Jerusalem. Okay, so we see Masonic imagery. Here we can see that the main building, which is sort of the presidential palace, is built along the same lines as Washington, D.C. Now, of course, we know that Washington, D.C. was built totally along occult lines. And we see another view here of the presidential palace. Here we can see what is called the Tree of Life. At the back here, we'll see later that there's a meeting room right at the top here where the world's religions are being united. There's an eagle up there, which symbolizes power. We're seeing basically a New World Order, New Age city being built. Okay, so let's carry on. Going inside, we see this globe signed by representatives from 17 religious denominations, and this represents uniting all religions together under the New World Order. Very, 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 very significant. Okay, so we see it.
Yeah, we locked, bit. We locked, bit. Yeah, bit. It's all on the line, Jit. Say, Jit, it's mine right. Get it right, Wood.
Clear plan that part of the New World Order is to unite the world's religions without a shadow of doubt. Now, this pyramid is dedicated to the renunciation of violence and to bring together the world's religions. The architect claims that the building has no recognizable religious symbols, but in reality the pyramid is a temple for sun worship, which is the religion of the New World Order. The pyramid is the main symbol of Freemasonry and ancient religious doctrine. Today's elite use these pyramids as symbols of power throughout the world. Las Vegas and Dubai contain similar structures, as do many other cities in the world. Here we have the apex of the pyramid, and this is what we're going to see inside. So, the apex is round and covered with sunlight. Images of white doves are embedded in the windows. This is obviously to do with world peace, representing also the unification of world governments and religions in this round circular shape, and the New World Order. So the apex, which is at the top of the pyramid, is the ultimate representation of illumination, which is the spiritual evolution of humanity into this new golden age or era of Aquarius, as we've seen before. Inside we see this meeting room, and we see the sun imagery and eye right in the center of this room. I mean, it couldn't be more clear. This is pure Luciferian worship right here. This is Lucifer being worshipped. And this meeting room here, which is the main room, also has the sun symbolism and or eye in the ceiling, and it is the conference room where the religious leaders of the world meet. But we can see here the sun occupies the whole ceiling. So all about illumination. This is the Tree of Life, and it says this monument is meant to embody a folk tale about a mythical tree of life and a magic bird of happiness. The Tree of Life, as it's called, is a roadmap which spirits supposedly use when they leave the material world to join the afterlife. The golden globe at the top of the monument represents the sun, the supreme deity, and here we have sun worship again. Now inside the gold globe, which is right at the top of that construction there, we have this very strange looking symbol. And it's a gold triangle which represents the president's handprint in the center, the president of this country. But there's something obviously much more mystical here. I believe this has to do with Satan, who the Bible says is the master of this world, or the prince of this world. This person says that the global elites scatter their symbols and doctrines all over the world, and of course the general population fail to recognize what's going on. So, this could signify Satan's mark on the world, or his thumbprint or handprint, making it an impression into this triangle. He's stamping his authority. Ultimately, this is right at the top of this Tree of Life. So, once again, we have the shrine to Luciferianism, to illumination, that Satan is in fact the light bearer and the bringer of light to humanity and spiritual life to humanity. Here we have a helix shape. The helix has to do with the DNA of mankind, and one of the very significant things that you're going to find when you start studying the occult and what's happening in this New Age One World religion is the fusion of the sons of God with the daughters of men, i.e. the fallen angels being fused with humans to form these new superhumans, again this concept of transhumanism. And I'm sorry to say it, but it also is in the shape of a male sexual organ, which is very significant in things like Freemasonry, because most of the occult religions have to do with fertility cults. So man is building a shrine to himself. Lucifer is being glorified as the god of this world, and here we have this new age, new century city being built to glorify man. Without any shadow of doubt, this is very pagan, very occultic, and is a sure sign of where things are heading.
Folks, I believe that the uniting of all religions into one big global religion will be one of the hallmarks of the end-time Babylonian system. We see Pope Francis hard at work in the ingathering of everyone towards one religion, so we would expect to see something along those lines, wouldn't we, if Neom had a part to play in the Babylonian system of the end times. Well, I just want to show you here how much Mohammed bin Salman is playing such a role.
We only want to go back to what we were, the moderate Islam of the world, open to all the religions. 70% of the Saudi people are less than 30 years old. And quite frankly, we will not waste 30 years of our lives in dealing with extremist ideas. We will destroy them today. We want to live a normal life, a life that translates our moderate religion, our good customs. We coexist and live with the world and contribute to the development of our country and the world. This is something that there are steps that we have taken in the past that are clear. I believe that we will eradicate the rest of extremism very soon. So I don't think this is a real challenge, because we represent the moderate teachings and principles of Islam, and we have the right. The right is on our side. And everything that we deal with. So I don't think that we're concerned.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mohammed bin Salman started off his UK trip with a visit to the Queen, who hosted the young prince at Buckingham Palace, a sign of just how eager the UK is to bolster its ties with the Saudi kingdom.
Your Royal Highness, very good to meet you indeed. Thank you so much for taking the trouble. Your Excellency.
The Queen is the official head of the Church of England. Mohammed bin Salman met the Queen, met Theresa May, British Prime Minister, and also the Archbishop of Canterbury, who is the head under the Queen of the Anglican Church, and a whole lot of other Anglican officials. The Crown Prince also met in Cairo with the Coptic Pope, the head of the Coptic Church in Egypt recently. While on a 3-week tour of the US, the Crown Prince also met with 2 Roman Catholic and 3 Jewish figures. The meeting emphasized the common bond among all people, particularly people of faith, which stresses the importance of tolerance, coexistence, and working together for a better future of all humanity, the embassy said. Although Prince Mohammed had recently met Christian figures, it marks the first time he's announced a meeting with our Jewish religious leader. Prince Mohammed's meeting included Rabbi Richard Jacobs, President of the Union for Reform Judaism, Rabbi Stephen Wernick, head of the United Synagogue of Conservative Judaism, and Alan Fagan, Executive Vice President of the Orthodox Union, the embassy said. Now, it's not only Mohammed bin Salman that's been at work doing this, but also the king, his father. Saudi Arabia's King Salman met with the chairman of the Pontifical Council for Interfaith Dialogue at the Vatican, Cardinal Jean-Louis Touran, and his accompanying delegation. During the meeting, they stressed the important role of followers of religions and cultures in renouncing violence, extremism, terrorism, and achieving worldwide security and stability. Sounds like great New World Order goals, doesn't it? Touran was hosted by Riyadh-based Global Centre for Combating Extremist Ideology, or ETIDAL, which showed its work in combating extremist ideology. ETIDAL, Arabic for moderation, is an effort by the international community to expose, combat and refute extremist ideology. The centre was established in 2017 and located in Riyadh. the cooperative effort of more than 55 countries. The centre operates mainly around three pivots: ideology, technology and media. And it uses these to disrupt extremist recruitment and promote tolerance and coexistence among different religions and cultures. Etadil has designed machine learning systems and algorithms to detect violent and extremist online content. We analyse this content and then anticipate how extremist groups use this content to recruit vulnerable audiences. To counter these efforts, we devise strategic programs and projects that encourage tolerance and moderation. Following the visit, Cardinal Turan commented, "It's important to see that Etadil has a mission and a vision. The centre is very wise to analyse the causes of extremism. Most of the time, extremism is provoked by injustice." Yeah, excellent advertisement for Pope Francis. That's what he would say, wouldn't he? Turan is seen as an energetic promoter of dialogue between the Roman Catholic Church and Islam. Surprise, surprise. Now back to the glowing orb and Donald Trump. The reason he was there putting his hands on that orb was because he was there at the inaugural opening of the Global Centre for Combating Extremist Ideology on the 21st of May 2017. And the Saudis were given basically NSA type powers to spy on people on the internet.
We've become very good friends over a fairly short period of time. I was in Saudi Arabia in May.
Also, Bin Salman visited the White House recently, and Saudi Arabia has negotiated with the US a massive deal to have arms and military equipment supplied to Saudi Arabia in the next few years.
We're getting a $700 billion military proposal, and that's even a lot for you guys. So it's a great honor to have you and your representatives here. Crown Prince, thank you very much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, the relation between Saudi Arabia and the rest of America, it's an old relation. We are the oldest ally for the rest of America and the Middle East.
Right.
And more opportunities, and that's why we are here today, to be sure that we tackle all the opportunities and achieve it, and also get rid of all the threats facing our both countries and the whole world. So I'm very glad to be here today.
Well, that's right. And you know, one thing that you have been really focused on is the terrorism threat and the funding of terrorism. And whether it's Saudi Arabia or other countries, as we know, there will be no funding. We have a zero tolerance for the funding of terrorists, and we're working very hard. And I will say that Saudi Arabia has been working very hard on that, as are certain other countries in the Middle East. When I was there in May, I think it was one of the most incredible two-day meetings that I've ever seen, that anybody's ever seen. It was an amazing two-day period. We had 56 countries. Everybody was there, the head of every country. Virtually, I guess, in every case, it was the head of the country. And we talked about terrorism and the funding of terrorism, and it will not be allowed. It will not be allowed. That would be the one thing that would end the relationship with any country.
According to a very interesting article in the New Yorker, shortly after the inauguration of Trump, it was Jared Kushner who began advocating a new outreach to Saudi Arabia, and in his plan, Trump would visit Riyadh for a summit of 55 Muslim-majority countries, and Jared was the engine for all this, a former defense official said. As Kushner grappled with the complexities of Middle East politics, he and Mohammed bin Salman began a conversation by telephone and email. They became very close fast, a former American official who sees Mohammed bin Salman periodically said. They see the world in the same way. They see themselves as being in the tech-savvy money world. Kushner followed up with a visit to Riyadh, the first of 3 such trips. The two men stayed up nearly until dawn discussing the future of their countries, according to this article in the New Yorker from the 9th of April. MBS gives the impression of being comfortable with Western Moors. In meetings with American women, he shakes their hands and looks them in the eye, which not every Saudi official will do. He has a lot of charisma. He's a lot like Bill Clinton. He makes you feel like you're super important when you're talking to him. He really puts on a charm that is unmistakable, continues that article. Bin Salman devised a plan called Vision 2030 for a vast transformation of the Saudi economy, and he basically visited China, Russia, the US, where he met with an array of tech executives including Mark Zuckerberg. At a gathering of prominent venture capitalists in Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco, MBS spoke bluntly about Saudi Arabia's prospects. According to one attendee, he said, "In 20 years, oil goes to zero and then renewables take over. I have 20 years to reorient my country and launch it into the future." Revelation 17:18 says, "And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth." Now, I'm not saying that Neom is it, but I think it deserves close watching, and put that in your basket of possibilities. Don't discount it. And don't discount Jared Kushner and the Pope, of course, and also Mohammed bin Salman as big players in the end times. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to like it, and also visit...
To think something so small could control you.
And everything you do, when your life and all you love are on the line.
The RFID chip is always with you, threatening your privacy, causing severe risk to your health and personal safety, and killing you if you do not obey rogue government demands.
Because I want to increase my risk of cancer.
Because I want to live in a cash-free society.
Because now, the government is looking out for us. Because I have the mark of the beast, but it doesn't have me.
Ask your doctor how to get your chip implanted today.
Because we want to track your every move.
Hello, I'm Tina. I live in a digital society of Estonia. I use my electronic ID card to access public and private services online, like filing my taxes and checking my son's progress in school. My husband has used his card to register his new business, my father to apply for a farming subsidy, and my mother to view her health records at home. And I can pick up her medications using my card. So our lives have become so much easier.
This is not the future, but already everyday life for our 1.3 million residents in Estonia. Our advanced digital society offers services in many fields like health, education, voting, and so on. And all these services make life easier, more convenient, more efficient for everybody. Our national information system is built on X-Road technology, which connects together data from all parts of government, as well as with the private sector. X-Road safeguards information to protect integrity and privacy, but at the same time it is very easy to add new services.
National employment registries enhance worker rights and social benefit regulation. Estonia's electronic employment register makes it easy for organizations across the country to register their employees using online, phone, text, machine-to-machine methods. It integrates with other agencies using the X-Road to speed services and eliminate duplications, helping us to improve employment verification and increase tax collections.
Providing urgent assistance in an emergency is a prime concern for us. Our new emergency response system, which we implemented in cooperation with IT and Development Center of the Estonian Ministry of the Interior, establishes good foundation for reducing the response time between answering emergency calls and the arrival of emergency services at the scene. There is better collaboration between all emergency services, and we are able to save more lives.
We now administer a large number of rural and agricultural subsidies digitally, saving time for our farmers and for our paying agency. We are also able to make GIS data about fields and livestock buildings available to Estonian and EU agencies, students, journalists, scientists. These advances are helping to improve Estonian agriculture and beyond.
This all is just the beginning for us us in e-Estonia, and we are working to improve our people's lives even more. Our digital strategy has been possible because of deep collaboration between public sector and private sector and our eager citizens. Together, we are very happy to share our story with you and help you start your digital journey.
Instead of having cash, anytime you have money in your chip, they can take out whatever they want to take out whenever they want to. If they say you owe us this much money in taxes, they just deduct it out of your chip digitally.
Total control.
Total control. And if you're like me or you, and you're protesting what they're doing, they can just turn off your chip. And you have nothing. You can't buy food. You can't do anything. It's total control of the people.
And that chip's connected to a database that has your purchasing records, what you do.
Everything is in there, you know? And so they want a one-world government controlled by them, everybody being chipped.
This company says it's about to become the first in the U.S. to offer microchip implants to its employees. You heard that right. Microchip implants under the skin. Josh Rosenthal joins us live from just up the hall to explain this. He's in the building with us right now. Josh, what's this all about?
And that's right. So, Lindsay, just outside of the studio here, we've got a few of these vending machines. Now, we all know how these work, right? You walk up, you put your dollar in, you get your bag of chips. Well, as I learned today, these machines are quickly becoming very old-fashioned, and in fact, just how old-fashioned may surprise you. At 3 Square Market in River Falls, a team of programmers designed software for break room markets, like this one. Believe it or not, this is the reason they're about to do this to more than 50 of their employees.
It's the next thing that's inevitably going to happen, and we want to be a part of it.
The concept is pretty simple. Just like how you can buy something nowadays using your phone, what if you could use a microchip inside your hand instead? Todd, you're going to show us how this could potentially work.
Yes, basically what this is considered is a break room market in an office complex. We'll come up, scan the item, we'll hit pay with credit card, and it's asking to swipe my proximity payment now. I'll hold my hand up, just like the cell phone, and it will pay for my product.
Instead of a credit card,
correct, because my microchip is now my credit card.
More than 53 Square Market employees are having them implanted starting next week. Not only can they buy stuff with them, they'll also be able to use the chips to get in the front door and log on to their computers. Each chip costs $300. The company's picking up the tab. The chip goes between your thumb and forefinger, and CEO Todd Westby says the data is both encrypted and secure. So if I'm one of your employees, and I've got this chip in my hand, you won't know, hey, Josh is slacking off. I can tell because I'm reading this chip.
No, there's no GPS tracking at all.
Employees here aren't required to get the chip. One of the ones choosing to do so, however, just so happens to be former North Star player and current Edina hockey coach, Kurt Giles.
If somebody told you back in the day when you're flying around the ice playing for the North Stars that you're going to have a chip implanted in your hand, you're going to use it to pay for stuff, you're going to use it out of buildings, what would you have told that person?
I probably would have thought a chip tooth or a chip of ice, but not a chip that has the technology that we're talking about today.
Okay, now, in case you're wondering, Lindsay, each one of these chips, it's about the size of a single grain of rice. It's tiny, just one little grain of rice. And now, get this. If you get one of these implanted into your hand and you want to get rid of it, you know how you do that? For real? Tell me you just pop it out.
It's almost hard to believe. Did they offer you one?
They did. They very much wanted me to come back next week when they're putting them in employees and get one. Still not sold, but I'm a little closer to being sold than I was when I walked in.
Faster from the vending machine.
Sure would.
Now we need to upgrade the vending machine.
Yeah, really.
All right, thank you, Josh. All right, this may be the first time a U.S. company is using the technology, but it's already being used in Europe. A company in Sweden offered more than 100 employees the opportunity to get those microchips earlier this year. The company Epicenter Stockholm says phone and internet browsing history poses more of a threat than the chip.
This is Mike with On Point Preparedness. Today, I have to share with you an incredible prophetic message that I believe was was revealed directly to me by the Father. In this video, I will not only share with you the prophetic event that happened between Pope Francis and Donald Trump's May 24th meeting, but how God revealed its significant importance to me. As I write the words to this video, I am still marveling at the circumstances which led me to decipher this event. Many of you who have followed my works for the past year clearly understand that the prophetic chapters of the Bible irrefutably attribute the term Mystery Babylon to an anti-church of the end times, and that this church or false religion is led by the Vatican. It also states that there is a second beast, the beast of the earth, who subdues the world into worshiping the beast system, and that beast of the earth is the United States of America. If you are in disagreement with these concepts, or they are completely foreign to you, I have placed some of my most pivotal YouTube videos on this subject in the YouTube description box for your convenience. Ever since the events of September 23rd, 2015, where these two beasts came together for a historic event in which Pope Francis spoke to a joint session of Congress, I have followed the relationship of these entities in detail. Therefore, when Donald Trump took office, I took the position that Donald Trump was not a Christian savior appointed by the Lord, but the new head of the beast of the earth.
But have you ever asked God for forgiveness? I'm not sure I have. I just go and try and do a better job from there. I don't think so. I think if I do something wrong, I think I just try and make it right. I don't bring God into that picture. I don't. Now, when I take, when we go in church and when I drink my little wine, which is about the only wine I drink, and have my little cracker, I guess that's a form of asking for forgiveness, and I do that as often as possible because I feel cleansed, okay?
I stated on record in January 2017 that he and Pope Francis would come together, despite opposition from the mainstream media and many of my subscribers, who stated that the two were so diametrically opposed that they would not meet. And so, here we are on May 24th, 2017, where these two leaders have come together seeking common goals, that is, the unification of religions in the spirit of peace, solidarity, and combating extremism. All in all, their meeting lasted less than an hour, and on its surface, there was some symbolism that I had anticipated. That is, Trump and his family would submit to Pope Francis. Sure enough, they did so as Melania, Ivanka, and their aide all wore black veils and black dresses, which is a common practice of submission or respect amongst formal female visitors to the Vatican. This is in stark contrast to the fact that none of these women, or any of the women in the Trump entourage, wore any head covering at all during their visit to Saudi Arabia. However, the symbolism goes much, much deeper than this, and it is in regards to the gift that Donald Trump presented to Pope Francis. So what is this gift, and what prophetic significance does it have? First, let me help you understand how God communicates with me, and how he said that I must focus on Donald's gift. In running on-point preparedness, I tirelessly research news articles, books, and even ancient texts. These activities, along with my full-time job, 2 children, and wife, prevent me from getting back to hobbies and the actual original founding purpose of on-point preparedness, which was based on wilderness survival. 3 days earlier, on May 21st, 2017, with what little free time I had, I picked up the following wild edible book from my collection of about 12 or so wild edible books. Each of these books is several hundred pages long and contain information about hundreds of different plants. I was only able to read a single section about one plant which I had not researched before, and that is the North American lotus plant, known as the Nambo lutea. This event by itself is essentially meaningless. That is, until I recognized that one of the gifts that Donald Trump presented to Pope Francis was a bronze sculpture of the exact lotus species I was reading about 3 days earlier. Is it mere coincidence that of all the gifts that Donald Trump could present to Pope Francis, it would be one species of plant out of several thousands of species of plants? And that I, one who committed to his subscribers that this event would be prophetic, and that I would be analyzing the symbolism, would have read about this very same species only 3 days earlier. So what is the important symbolism? The lotus is one of the most occult and ancient symbols of the natural world. And the fact that Donald Trump chose this sculpture, which was entitled Rising Above, is of grave concern. The lotus is the flower sacred to the Aryan Hindus, Egyptians, Buddhists, and more. References to it are found in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the Jewish mystic religion of Kabbalism, and several other pagan religion texts and sculptures. For the occult, it represents the divine rebirth unto enlightenment, an abstract concept that is brought to life in the concrete or visible form of a lotus. It is, in essence, the same symbolism as the enlightenment of the all-seeing third eye. To name a few examples of its prevalence, you can see this in the occult film I, Pet Goat 2, where a lotus flower is seen blooming at the heels of then-President Obama. His face grows stark as he witnesses the reality of this transformative stage of enlightenment. In Egypt, you can see here the 4 sons of Horus being birthed out of the lotus flower. In Buddhism, Buddha is frequently attributed to holding the lotus, and the list goes on and on. The reason why the occult reveres this flower and its symbolism of rebirth unto enlightenment is best described by Helena P. Blavatsky, who is the co-founder of the Theosophical Society. She writes specifically on the lotus flower. For reference, the Theosophical Society shares ideology and a partnership with the Lucis Trust, an organization that directly worships Lucifer and states that he is a misrepresented angel that sacrificed himself for the good of mankind. In her book, The Secret Doctrine, she references a passage from the Kabbalistic manuscripts, which states, pointing to like signification was a lotus growing in the waters of the Nile. Its mode of growth peculiarly fitted it as a symbol of reproductive activities. The flower of the lotus, which is the bearer of the seed for reproduction, as the result of its maturing, is connected by its placenta-like attachment with Mother Earth, or the womb of Isis, through the water of the womb, that is, the River Nile, by means of the long cord-like stalk, the umbilicus. Nothing can be plainer than the symbol, and to make it perfect in its intended signification, a child is sometimes represented as seated in or issuing from the flower. You can now see how the occult viewed the flower as a symbol of rebirth as a child, or this rebirth into enlightenment, represented by a child coming out of the flower head. The Kabbalistic manuscript continues with the sexual and reproductive symbolism of the lotus. It states the locality of the womb is to be taken as the most holy place, the sanctum sanctorum, and the veritable temple of the living God. This falls in line with all occult practices, as they practice sex magic and literally worship
worship the female body. She also makes note of the lotus from the ancient Egyptian ritual Book of the Dead, which has a section entitled Transformation into the Lotus. It states, a head emerging from this flower. The god exclaims, I am the pure lotus, emerging from the luminous one. I carry the message of Horus. I am the pure lotus which comes from the solar fields. So, I believe that the Antichrist spirit was definitely at work in this meeting. Any multitude of gifts could have been given to Pope Francis. Books, medallions, sentimental items, other pieces of art, etc. But out of these multitudes, Donald Trump chose the lotus. As the Egyptian Book of the Dead states, is Donald affirming that he carries the message or gift of Horus, an enlightened message essentially from Lucifer? I guess that is up for you to decide.
Hi guys, this is Ed and welcome to the Outer Dark. Recently I was doing some research and I found a number of very strange things regarding the symbolism at the Pope's audience hall at the Vatican, and I found it really disturbing. In fact, there was one detail that really did blow my mind. Anyway, stay tuned as the Outer Dark brings you 5 dark things about Paul IV's audience hall. Number 5, first some context. I am a Christian and I was baptized, and at one stage I was even an altar boy. I'm not knocking the Catholic faith or anything like that, but it is my duty to follow the breadcrumbs, no matter where they go, even if I don't like what I find. Anyway, what is the audience hall in question? Well, it's a building in the Vatican where the Pope himself holds audience. It's named after Pope Paul IV and has a seating capacity of 6,300. It's designed in reinforced concrete by an Italian architect and was completed in 1971. The architect in question is noted for building large reinforced concrete structures, the kind that's very strong and is the public equivalent of a super bunker. Number 4, I will be covering the audience hall in depth in a moment and what very well blew my mind about it. But until then, I want to go over something else. That is the major feature behind the Pope that features inside the audience hall, namely this. Have you seen this before? I'd never seen it before myself and felt like I had entered the realm of the Mandela effect once again, on overload this time, since this is the most ominous thing I've ever seen in a while. This artwork was placed within the hall in 1977, as history states, and depicts, according to the Vatican, the resurrection of Christ emerging from a nuclear apocalypse. Now think to yourself for a moment. The audience hall is a reinforced concrete bunker, and the depiction of Christ shares the same connections with Christ himself rising from an atomic apocalypse. Not only that, but many people have said this is the most unchristian thing they have ever seen in a long time, even a number of Catholics I've talked to. For it looks like Christ's head is in fact missing, at least half of it. A number of Catholics don't even remember even seeing this before or looking at it, but it's been in the hall since, at least according to history, since 1977. The structure seems to have entered at least the internet's consciousness around 2012. I could find a couple of examples before that, but most seem to be post-2012, and there doesn't seem to be any pictures of it from the front. All seem to be taken from the side. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that because I found it really disturbing. Number 3. In order to understand what I'm going to show you about the audience hall, that is the following symbolism around the architecture. You have to understand a number of coarse conspiracies, most notably the work of researcher David Icke, at least the main theories he puts forward. For he states that there is an idea that the elites themselves rule through a secret bloodline within the global elite, and that there is an overriding superstructure of, well, alien influence, most notably reptilian. Number 2. I want to have a look very carefully at the inner architecture of the audience hall. I want you to look very carefully at this piece, this part of the architecture, and really just look at it. Now it's a circular eye-like architecture, and you can see there is almost a slit in it. It almost looks reptilian. Well, is your mind blowing yet? Probably not. You're probably laughing at me. Well, sorry, maybe I should take the photo from a different position. How about here? Now can you see it? This view is from the back of the hall. A view largely never taken, I might add, in any form. Maybe because if you see it on the front view, you can see this. Let me go through this in detail, so you can see what I'm talking about. First, the eyes. Take a look. Now the scaly skin. Now the sharp teeth. Also note the pathway to the Pope himself, and the fact that it resembles a snake's tongue, or even a snake's tail. Now ask yourself this. Why is there a massive snake symbolism within the inner audience chamber of the Pope? Also note the architect who designed it. This project would have cost millions of dollars. And every design, everything you can think of, it's the job for the architect to entertain. They just don't design anything like this unless there is a reason behind it. So what is the snake a symbol of? Well, ask yourself that. What is the snake a symbol of within Christianity? Number one. So what does this mean? Well, perhaps we need to go back to David Icke again. Let's go through David Icke's main hypothesis again. David Icke states that there's a global conspiracy where our very world is being ruled by reptilian aliens, that they rule this through control over bloodlines and vast amounts of other methods and resources. He states that the elites are not like us. They look like us, they act like us, but they're not like us. They are fundamentally different. They think different. And most importantly, they have different wants and needs, different desires. But at the end of the day, I'm just presenting what I find. It does not mean I'm right. Go out and do your own research, form your own conclusions, and come to your own opinions. These are just the dots I connect. I'm just an armchair researcher,